What is going on, y'all? This is John Allsace with the Face Mask Podcast, bringing you new fantasy content every day. So if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to talk about new Seattle Seahawks tight end, Gerald Everett. Now, Gerald Everett, 6'3", 240 pounds. He's 27 years old, and he was drafted in the second round. I'd forgotten he was drafted in the second round, but there you go. Everett moved over into Seattle from LA and is reuniting with Shane Waldron, who was with the Rams last season and is now the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. So Everett comes in already knowing the scheme, and he should easily take over the lead role of this depth chart. Now, the Seattle Seahawks have 144 targets up for grabs after offseason departures. Their top two receiving tight ends, Jacob Hollister and Greg Olsen, are no longer on the team and left behind a combined 77 targets. And wide receiver David Moore also left in free agency. So while they brought in rookie Dwayne Eskridge, there's definitely an avenue for Gerald Everett to become Russell Wilson's number 3 option in the passing game behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Now, Everett has never been a great fantasy option. He's never exceeded the 417 yards that he got last year prior to last season, and he has topped out thus far in his career at the 3 TDs he scored in 2018. Last year, he only scored 1 TD. He scored that 1 TD on 62 targets. So let's just say if the 77 targets that are vacated from Hollister and Olsen were to go to Gerald Everett, based on career averages, he would finish with 517 yards. And while his TDs would absolutely go up from the 1 touchdown that he scored last season, it's hard to say how much because touchdowns vary so much from year to year. But what we can say is that in the 3 years Jimmy Graham was on the team, Seattle targeted tight ends 358 times. At age 31 in this offense in 2017, his last year with the team, he had 57 catches for 520 yards and 10 touchdowns. That was good enough to rank him 4th that year, behind Gronk, Kelsey, and Ertz. So huge touchdown numbers are absolutely possible. I'm just not betting on it. But going back to the targets that Jimmy Graham was getting, 358 in 3 years. Now, in the 3 years since, that's fallen to 271 times. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that they didn't have a talent at tight end that they wanted to exploit, that they wanted to use on a day in, day out basis. Now, most recently, the Seahawks tried a 3 tight end committee with Will Dissly, the aforementioned Jacob Hollister, and Greg Olsen, and none of them were fantasy relevant. They each played a very small role in the offense. But now, like I said, Greg Olsen retired, Hollister signed with Buffalo, Dissly is coming off I don't even know how many leg injuries and knee injuries, and I think his explosiveness is sapped. If you saw him on tape last season, he just didn't look like he had it, whereas in years prior, he was Russell Wilson's favorite red zone option. If you remember, he was a darling in the fantasy community because within the first few games of the season, he was always at the top of the tight end ranks because he was scoring touchdowns. And now, Gerald Everett is looking to take that role. But even with the lack of TE competition on the roster, the vacated targets, the QB upgrade, I still don't expect it to be enough for him to warrant top 10 consideration at this point, because this is a run first, run second team who, according to coaching staff comments, want to run it on 3rd and 4th down too. And at his current ADP of 143, right around the 12th round, I'd rather have other tight ends going in that range. Robert Tonyan, because as we inch closer to the season, it's looking more and more likely like Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing for Green Bay next season. But you can also go out and get Adam Troutman and Blake Jarwin for around the same price. He's not an athletic freak like some other tight ends. He's not an excellent blocker, so he won't have the snap shares of some, and he plays in an offense that won't give him target monster numbers. So what we're betting on with Gerald Everett is that he's going to have insane red zone usage, which is possible, but I'm not betting on it in any other format outside of best ball. He'll be a fine TE2 with some TD upside, but there are other tight ends that I'd rather have than him in pretty much every format. Now, I'm not trying to sell him if I have him, because I do think he's valuable, and depending on how the Seahawks use him, he could absolutely creep into the top 10 based off of touchdown numbers. But I'm not buying him, and at the price for what the ADP is, I think I'm going elsewhere with my draft picks, and that's not an indictment on him, it's an indictment on that fantasy situation, because we have to remember, when Jimmy Graham was the number 1 in this offense, the other wide receivers in this offense were Doug Baldwin and a second-year Tyler Lockett and Paul Richardson. None of them had 1,000 yards receiving. Doug Baldwin came close, he had 991 yards, but Tyler Lockett that year, he was not the player he is today. day, he only got 555 yards and 2 TDs. So this offense didn't have an outlet for receiving production outside of Jimmy Graham. But now if you look at this offense, they got DK Metcalf, wide receiver 1. They just drafted Dwayne Eskridge. They of course still have Tyler Lockett. I just don't know if they're going to allocate the necessary targets to the position for him to be valuable. So what do you guys think? Put your thoughts in the comment section below. This is the Face Mask Podcast, bringing you fantasy content every day. Once again, if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. My name is John Alsace. Thank you for listening.